Hello, and welcome back to Dietitians Beyond Borders. I'm your host, Jennifer Chalub, a registered dietitian, and I'm so excited to bring you to another episode exploring how nutrition and dietetics are practiced around the world. Today, we're spotlighting an incredible dietitian who was born and raised in the vibrant twin island nation of Trinidad and Tobago. After she got to the US, she got a spark and an increased passion towards nutrition. And I'm so excited to get to know more about you, Heather. Hello, welcome.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited and I'm so happy for you.
Yes, so thank you so much. Thank you for being part of this. Just a quick, FYI, Heather and I, we work together at the John Tudor Cancer Center here in Hackensack, New Jersey. But I've always, looked up to you, always, learned a lot. And I'm just so excited today to truly sit down and just get to know you better, get to know your thoughts and just take that as they say, like expertise and those treasures, those pearls. I would love for me to get to know you better through those, and of course the audience.
An audience, she looks up to you because I'm taller than she
But anyway, so welcome. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, your roots in Trinidad, and what led you to pursue dietetics in the first place?
Okay, well, so growing up in Trinidad and Tobago, which is a Caribbean island, a very vibrant island, and sometimes I know the thought out there is that maybe, especially years ago, food was scarce, just the opposite. Tons and tons of food. Food has always been the focus in my life. So I come from a very large family. I have only one brother, one sister, but I have tons of cousins and aunts and uncles. So everything was surrounded around food. And I also grew up seeing my father cook and prepare, my mother as well, but more so my dad, cook and prepare and serve the underprivileged.
Wow.
And I seemed to be the one that was always volunteering to go with him from as far as I could remember until, pretty big and tall. um, so I've always been. And then when I got into high school in Trinidad, I started taking what we called home economics classes, learning biology more. Then when we did move to this country, did finished high school, entered college. I actually was not studying nutrition. But I did take one class, and then that was it. I
Wow.
was actually going to be a Spanish teacher.
Oh, really? Oh, I did not know that. That's great. Oh,
I
wow.
was like fascinated and addicted to Spanish.
Wow, wow.
Here, ask me one question in
Yeah,
Spanish now. Anyway, so I took one class, and I always loved science,
yeah.
and I always loved to learn. So I took one class, another class, then another class, and then a major.
How did this transition into, you falling in love in dietetics and nutrition? How did that go in, and what was your educational journey like?
Yeah. So I was torn between after I got over my high of Spanish and then I'm teaching Spanish. I got into this either food science or nutrition, and then I always found myself like volunteering something with food. So it just kind of like naturally happened. It was kind of, I guess organically happened.
Mm, amazing.
I took more and more classes, and then the professors were very intriguing. Um, Things were very different then than it is now. There's been so many paths to become a dietitian. So I finished my degree. I worked for a year because I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do. The field was actually in a transition at the time
Mm.
where they had, I think I was the first cohort, the first year that stopped the master's program and started the dietetic internship.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
dietetic internship has always been there,
Yeah.
but the push was for that.
Which is after the completing your undergrad, right? Yep. Yep.
Right. So I worked for a year, then or maybe 10 months, quit, and then applied to schools, got in, and I was able to go to school right here in New Jersey at University of Medicine Dentistry, which is now called Rutgers University,
Oh,
um, which was intense year, as you know, and then started working.
perfect.
And it happened pretty quickly. Studied that summer for
Wow.
the exam, took the exam, became an RD, and got it.
Excellent. Amazing. Amazing. How did your Caribbean upbringing influence your approach to nutrition?
Um, well, I think when I think about it, I was trained in this country to become a dietitian and took it very seriously. It was a very, what we will consider at that time, I guess, traditional training, learning the food pyramid, learning the four food groups. You
Mm-hmm.
know, well, things have changed a lot since then, a whole lot. So I early on, I started incorporating in my teaching what I learned, the diversity of what I've learned. Just a quick synopsis: Trinidad is a very made up of a very diverse population. Um, not We took it for granted. We didn't realize that we were diverse. You know, so I took that teaching, that learning, and that variety in food and culture, and sort of incorporated in my teaching. Not always so easy to do because I was caught in between two worlds in trying to figure out how can I teach, use what I grew up with and what I was traditionally trained to tell patients.
Yeah. Absolutely, which is very, very different. And,
Mm-hmm.
for somebody who's, a bit alike,
Mm-hmm.
um, as you know, right? I'm a dietitian, but I was raised in Lebanon,
Mm-hmm.
and moving here and coming here. I mean, I didn't know what was mac and cheese. I didn't know
Right.
what chicken parm
Meatloaf.
is,
Yes.
meatloaf,
Yeah.
and grits. I mean, this is not what we're used to.
Right.
So you coming and deciphering this and kind of getting
Mm-hmm.
exposed to, regardless if it's the American diet or like their
Yeah.
culture, but also all over the world, because we live in a melting pot, and
Melting
literally
pot.
we're exposed to a variety and a
Right.
huge patient population.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I because initially I was so new at everything, like most people. So you learn, okay, this is the protein group, this is the carbohydrate group, this is, and I would take exactly how I learned. That's just as example, teaching a diabetic diet, as an example. And okay, you must eat this chicken breast with a scoop of potatoes.
Mhm.
And then I would go, leave the room of the patient or my client and just not comfortable because I may be talking to someone from India or someone from Trinidad or whatever, or Macedonia, and knowing fully well when they go home, they are not going to do that because they don't eat like that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly, 100%. So, as you were mentioning, Trinidad and Tobago is an incredible country when it comes to diversity, flavor, food. How do you incorporate your cultural food knowledge into your work right now? So, how, obviously here in the United States, how are you able to implement this through, and whether it's in this job or previous jobs? Because
I've had many jobs.
yes, and as I mentioned in the beginning, we are so interested to see how you're able to entail those
Mm-hmm.
experiences throughout your journey.
Right. It took a lot of years of practice and experience, of course, for me to feel relaxed to say it's okay to eat the foods from where I come from. So I I kind of hate to admit this, and it because I was traditionally trained, I wasn't thinking outside the box. I was kind of stuck in this little bubble of being how I was trained. And then I had to teach myself just from practice and practice and practice that I do come from a very rich background
That you're proud of.
that I'm very proud of. I growing up in Trinidad and even living in this country, I live in a very Trinidadian home. So what I ate in school is very different from the way my mother or my great aunts or my cousins cooked. So we ate very traditionally Trinidadian. Um, Trinidad is made up of enslaved African slaves. It's made up of indentured Indians, who came from India and China by the British, European settlers, and a
Wow.
small diaspora of Middle Eastern people, as we know, as I've told you. So all of that is incorporated. Just imagine the flavors and the spices using the basic foods that they all brought with them. That is made up of the Trinidadian diet.
Incredible.
Right. So when I teach a patient and I focus on the patient, I try to think of these same foods, basic foods, whether it be a green banana or a plantain, or spinach,
Split peas.
split peas, yes, or garbanzo beans, or whatever it might be, and how it's okay for you to eat those foods. They don't necessarily need to be fried or deep, overcooked or whatever. But now let's modify it and see how we can use those same foods and eat them in a healthy way.
And actually, before we continue, do you remember how? So in the cancer center, we do cooking studio sessions to patients, their family members, even survivors, which is truly amazing because that's truly how you go above and beyond in your field. But do you remember when we did the mluchiyya? And
Yes.
that mluchiyya is like a Middle Eastern traditional, it looks like a spinach, but it's not, with its own thing. Please Google it. But you guys had something a bit similar,
We had
yeah, right?
something similar.
But it's different. But you see
Yeah.
how like this is so fascinating when
Yeah.
you learn things and you
Yes.
you just get out of your comfort zone and get to know
Right.
other
The
things.
base of that dish
Yeah,
was a green leafy vegetable, which
exactly.
that's what our national dish is,
Yeah,
except
yeah.
we have adapted maybe.
In a
I don't know.
different
I guess
way.
all the flavors of the Africans and the so
Absolutely.
on, we put coconut milk and so on, and
Yeah.
what's indigenous to us.
So, speaking of whether cooking studios or in general, whenever you talk about Caribbean food in front of like somebody who's not that exposed, let's say, um, how would you like? First of all, whenever you spoke about that in front of them, how was the reaction? And you can tell me if you want, because that's raw footage, ladies and gents. Before or like an after,
Yeah.
how things have changed.
Yes.
As we know,
That was
things
the
have
first thing to
changed.
tell you. Things have changed.
So, what would you say before and after? How people are perceiving that education whenever you come and like you share proudly that that
Yeah.
something deep part of you.
And not only with patients and clients or
Everybody,
presentations, but just
everybody.
coworkers and
Yeah.
everybody you
Your
meet.
friend, yeah.
Right. So in the early days of me being a dietitian in the early 90s, it was still a kind of a mystery. When everyone thought you see Caribbean food, you're thinking mangoes, you're thinking, you know, you're thinking fruits and vegetables, but you don't really thinking that deeply what kinds of fruits and vegetables. You're thinking spicy to burn the mouth. Um, and I've heard lots of little innuendos that maybe not healthy, fatty, things like that. When really and truly the base of our food is very much plant based
It's fresh,
and fresh.
organic, and literally organic, right?
Yes. Well, the way we grew up, it was organic.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right. But the world has changed. The world has changed a lot. And I feel sometimes like I living in some sort of I don't know what to say. I mean, I compare and I see the differences, the progress in society when I go back home, and then I see the changes in people because of the influx of people have traveled, they move, they go back, they bring things with them, they bring new recipes. The internet has just introduced a world of things.
Social media.
Social media. So people are trying, they're taking that simple dark green leafy vegetable and now they're adding maybe a different flavor to it, maybe a Mexican flair to it, or whatever it may be. And my pet peeve is the influx of fast foods. Street food is huge in the Caribbean. So you can walk in every block and find some type of street food is like one of our main things that we have. We love it. We it's part of a tourist our tourist attraction. But with that has also come the big companies. If I can mention them.
You can.
The
It's
McDonald's, the
raw
Cheesecake
footage.
Factory, the Applebee's.
BK.
Yeah. And so dating myself, I didn't grow up with any of that, right? Because that wasn't available. Um, and you've seen how society has changed with the chronic diseases.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully, we know that there are definitely lots of good dietitians there that are trying to do God's work and hopefully,
Yes.
help out as much
Yes.
as you can, which
Well,
is
I'm very
great.
proud of that really quickly, that nutrition is actually a very, very vibrant field in the Caribbean.
Wow.
In the, and not just the English speaking Caribbean, but the Spanish speaking Caribbean, the French speaking Caribbean. It is really has grown a lot. And the university pushes it quite a bit. There's quite a bit of people going into the food science part of it, which is fine.
Yeah.
But a lot of people doing community work and teaching healthy,
Excellent.
how to eat healthy.
Excellent. Great, great, great. So, what were some challenges you faced as, somebody? Yes, I mean, you were born there, you were raised there for, good amount of years, to your teenage years, and then you came to this country. Once you started working, um, as you know, things have changed,
Hmm.
and we spoke about that, right?
Hmm.
Um, until this day, things are still changing, things are still evolving.
It's just pretty amazing. Yeah.
You've seen this field, you've been in this field for the past maybe 20-25
Hmm.
years.
Hmm.
What would you how was it perceived back
Yeah.
then as somebody coming from outside?
Yeah. I think because most people didn't travel as much as they do now, so the walls were there. Um, People have always been interested to get asked questions. Where you're from. What do you eat? Some people, but many people weren't, and there was always a wall. And I've always been proud. I was brought up to be very proud from where I come from. Um, I come from a very confident family, and I may not be the star of that family, but they are very proud of where they come from, and they let you know it. But I think I was a little bit quiet about preaching the story in the beginning. Um,
Maybe because you didn't have a present audience, somebody
could
to
be.
somebody to give you that space,
Yeah,
right?
could be. I wasn't conscious of it. I just was kind of going along the
You were
way.
going with the
Yeah.
flow.
Um, and then I think as I got a little more matured and a little more confident, I married someone from the Caribbean. Well, he's from South America, but is part of the Caribbean as well, culturally speaking. And the more we travel, the more we talk about food, then I'm like, well, of course. Why am I not preaching this even more? And then I started seeing dietitians around the, you know, the Caribbean, this part of the world, talk about it very freely. So it became easier to do. So I've never, just to make it clear, I've never been embarrassed about where I come from. However, I've been more like, because traditionally American trained, I kind of stuck to that a little. But now I've changed it quite a bit actually.
And you know what? That's everything. That's everything to me, and that's everything to every single individual who comes from a different country, or even, let's say, they are first generation, first
Yeah,
American generation coming from other countries, because the United States is created in a way that we're all
yes,
immigrants, and then, and this is it, and that's why it's
right,
the land of the opportunity, land of the free, and all that,
right,
and growth.
right,
But unfortunately, maybe in our field back then, it wasn't
yes,
that cheered on. It wasn't that,
100%.
yes, and you had to
We
go just dive
go
in
along with
with
them.
whatever you could.
Hmm.
And I'm sure, I mean, obviously I wasn't there. I don't, I
You're
wasn't.
born.
Yes, yeah, maybe. Yes. um the field was different. It was
Very different.
yeah.
Very different. And I love the fact that the Academy, if you remember a couple of years ago, and it's still going on, has pushed the whole diversity
Mm,
because,
as they should.
right. And, you know, when I've gone to a couple of lectures and I say, well, why did I do this? Why didn't I feel like, why did I have to wait for like whippersnapper to come and do it? But I give them a lot of props for doing that.
It took, I'm
Yeah.
sure it took years of hustle,
Hmm.
and still we're working on it, right?
Yes.
Like, we're still, unfortunately, those small, minorities,
Yeah.
we're just a percentage, a small percentage.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
advocating for, and now I'm sure you learned that,
Hmm.
maybe a bit the hard way, but advocating,
Yes.
for yourself,
Right.
your country, your culture, the
Yeah.
love towards your values, you say it
Exactly.
out loud now, and
Right. And
and
mandatory.
this is what it is,
Yes.
period.
Because this country is this is the love of this country. It's just so diverse. I mean, we have dietitians from all parts of the world. bringing their values into this one, which is
Bubble.
pretty,
Bubble.
yeah, so this one small bubble. We know it's a small bubble. And we have hard work teaching people to eat healthy. It is a challenge.
Yeah.
And teaching, I'm just going to use Trinidadians or any part of the Caribbean, teaching them to take their basic foods and modifying it a little, but you don't have to get rid of, all the foods that we know that's commonplace to us.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. I mean, in Lebanon, you don't expect them to have the salmon with,
Right.
gnocchi and I don't
Yeah.
know what. I mean, maybe
That.
now because everybody's becoming more westernized.
Yeah.
Lebanese, if you're listening, I know I'm talking to you,
But
but
salmon is not indigenous. Salmon is
that's
not
not something
indigenous to that
common.
area.
That's
Yeah.
not common. We're falafel and hummus people.
Right. Exactly.
Mm,
So.
But anyway, that's great. I mean, I know between clinical, between working at the hospitals, at
Mhm.
outpatient centers, at
Mhm.
even having your own clinic,
Mhm.
right, even working with couple of companies in the medical field, TPN,
Oh
nutrition
boy.
support. She's the queen here, the goddess of nutrition support. So truly it's like, we learn something every day, and I'm
Yeah.
just so happy you're
Still
here.
learning. There's
Yeah,
always room to learn more and more and
especially with
more.
nutrition.
Oh my
As you know,
goodness.
every
Yes.
day is something new.
Every day something new.
What opportunities has your unique background opened up for you? I just gave, a couple of, general what you've done, but what do you feel like you having that strength, those values?
Mhm.
Um, how did that pave the way of years of experience that led you to who you are today?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. I don't know. I mean, if I think in a microcosm way of it, I have been asked to do many lectures within the community. That's actually makes me feel really good.
And proud, of
Yeah,
course.
when the Jamaican societies asked me to do, or the
Wow.
church groups have asked me to do, and I can actually get up there and I'm not the best in doing my slides, but I would get up there and talking about the foods that they recognize, and you could see their eyes light up.
Glowing.
Yeah, for simple little changes, and that makes me feel good. That makes me feel really good. I mean, nowadays in this country, there are a lot of people who from Trinidad, Jamaica, Grenada, wherever it might be, that are now nurse practitioners in the health field,
Mm.
um, more so than ever before, than when in the early 90s. So there is a society of people that may reach out to me to do things, and I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
Yeah, because you feel like you're giving back in
You
a
feel like
way.
you're giving back in a small way.
Yeah.
And I've done a ton of different talks and talks on all different things, but it's usually very general. So when at this point in my life I'm called to talk about cholesterol, and it's something that we may not think is so in depth,
Yeah.
but it could be
And it's
very impactful in the community.
exactly. A lot of
It does
value.
feel good,
Oh,
yeah.
good, good. So, last question. What's one key piece of advice you'd give to the dietitians who are listening to us today, or even whoever is interested, in the field, just to listen? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, it has been rewarding for me. Um, I personally think if anyone is interested in going into nutrition and dietetics, the field is very vast. It's growing internationally, of course. There's so many avenues to become a dietitian, or I should say, so many avenues to work as a registered dietitian, not just typically a clinical position, but we know you can work in the community, you can work working for companies that take you all over the world, food companies, and so on, teaching in schools. Um, I really truly say if it's something that people are passionate about, to go for it. And as you know, I don't know if you're gonna ask me if I could talk about those abroad who may want to come.
Oh yeah.
You
Go
know,
ahead. Yes.
um,
I would love you to share that. Yeah.
of course, I talk like it's so easy to come. Maybe it is for some people, but if people want to expand their education and come here, there's so much to learn. There's so much to see and learn. So I say if that is the story, that you get your education, or if you go back to practice in your country, that's even better. But it's a very vast, diverse place. So whatever you can learn and soak up, um, please do. It's an ongoing learning process.
Yeah. Well, that was great. Thank you so much, Heather, for sharing your journey with us and, answering those questions. Your story is such a powerful reminder of how culture, resilience, and passion comes together in this field. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow food and culture enthusiast. Until next time, stay curious, stay nourished, and keep exploring nutrition beyond borders. Thank you.
Thank you.